Hi, today we're going to build a dashboard inside of Toddle without writing a single line of code. So let's get started. So first you will just create a blank project in Toddle and just make sure that you only have the main div. And what I like to do is I like to start with the main div and add another div in it to give it structure. So the main div already comes with some padding. In this section is where we do our padding. I like to remove the padding on the main div. And I like to go in my inner div. And I like to make it width 100%, height 100%. Here we go. Height 100%. Oops, here we go. And it's, as you can see, it's not going to 100% unless I go on the three dots here. Boom, and make it flex 1, and now it's going to be across the whole screen, and it's going to be full screen. So in this I can create my layout, right? I want to go to the layout, and I want to have this on the side, because I want to have a side panel on the side, and the main app frame on the other side. So I'm going to go flex to the side, and that is all I want to do. Now in here, I can add another div block, and I have my div block in here. I want to make this, for example, 20 VW view width, that is 20, kind of like 20% of the screen. And then I can go and add another div block next to it. And I just want to make this the whole part, which is 100%, and it's going to have overflow, and the height will be also 100%. Or actually maybe not, because we have it in a flex box. So I have this with 100%, but you can see that we have overflow. So I'm going to go on the three dots, and I'm going to go to flex, and I will make this flex 1. It will automatically magically clip to it. So now I have my frame in here. And what I can do is, I'm not a fan of dark mode. I'm so sorry for all the dark mode fans, but let's make this a proper UI by using light mode. And actually, I'm a fan of having borders around it, so I go to the structure that holds those, and I want to add a padding around them. So I do one rem, top on both sides, as you can see, and I do top and bottom, one rem as well. So now we have those in here. And now let's give it some styling so we can actually see it. I like to go in the field here where it is at background color, and I go to the color and I make it 50, so we have it nice and gray. And what I now can do is I can go to the border part, and I can, make this, for example, 200, so we have like a nice border around it. And then if I want rounded borders, I can just do, let's do 14 pixels, and now I have rounded borders. And in here I can do padding on the side, one rem, padding top and bottom, one rem, and now I have the side panel beautifully set up. So I have my side panel in here. Now in that side panel, I can click on here, go on the plus, add a button, and now that button can be my navigation. So I want to do width, for example, 100%. The height should be auto. And now I want top and bottom, let's do 3.5 rem, or let's 0.5 rem. On the sides, we can do 1 rem, and that will look beautiful. So, and maybe even 0.75 if we really want to go into detail. Now, what I like about Toddle is when I start designing things with detail, I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to make it look beautiful. But as we can see, I have my main center in here and my div block in here, and they're like kissing each other. I don't want that. So I go to the element that holds them both. This is the element that they're both wrapped in. That is the element that holds them both. And I can go in this section here, where like those gaps are next to each other, and I make this 1 rem as well. And now watch the magic. They're going to be 1 rem separated from each other, so we have nice and even separation between those. Now I have my side panel, and I actually think it should be 0.5 rem just to look nicer. And we can do 0.5 rem as an example. That looks beautiful. And now I can have like my navigation in here. I can make that navigation button, for example, white, like this. And I can go to the border, and I can make the border 200, so we have it highlighted just like that. And actually the background should be fully white, so let's make it fully white, and it looks beautiful. And now I can go to the text, and I make the text gray 700, and now I can write dashboard, right? And now if I want to add icons, I like to go to Relume icons. It's a great resource to find beautiful icons. And let's look for a home icon. I like that home icon. And I take the 24 pixels version, I copy it for Figma, and I can just simply paste it into the button, and now I have my icon. Now the icon is under it. So I need to go to the layout and make this go to the side. Now it's kind of like not aligned, so I go to the flexbox and center it, and now I just want to go to the element tree, copy the text, delete it, go to the button and paste it. Now it looks beautiful, but they're very close to each other. So I go on the button and I go on the gap and I give it 0.5 rem. That looks good. Spacing. So now we have our dashboard section in our element tree in here. Now I can copy it, and I like to copy this element and then delete it. And I like to go in here and add another div block. And in this div block, I then start, nesting my top navigation so that if I want, I could also have a lower navigation. Most of the times dashboards have that. Now I go in this one here that contains all my elements in it and give it a gap in the layout section of 1 rem, or maybe of 0.5 rem. So they are now all even separated from each other. And then most of the times you want to have like the billing section on the lower part. So I copy this div, go to the parent, paste it in there, go in here, align it on the side and double click. And now the one will be on top and the other one will be on the bottom. But they will just be like kind of like smushed to the side. So I go on this div block here and I'm going to make it width 100%. And I'm going to go here with the width 100% so that they align the full part. And I can delete most of the buttons here. And I can go in here, for example, and I can do like invoices and billing. I could do like invoice. I could do like billing center, and I can go in here and I can do like customer, or I can do like real-time support, or let's do chat support. I have my support. Now I can just change the icons. We can have like a dashboard. We can have like a monitoring page, monitoring, and then I have like a KPI and data, and I can put like integrations, and I can do like, for example, webhooks or something like this, whatever my dashboard needs. And now we can find some nice icons. I can look for like webhook. Let's look for a webhook. Oh, that's a nice webhook. Let's take that webhook. Let's copy it for Figma. Let's go in here. Let's go to webhooks. Let's paste it in here. Delete that one. Go in here. Copy the text. Go to the button. Paste it in there so we have it aligned. Let's go to integrations. I can look like for code, for example. I like that icon. Looks almost like my icon. And let's go in here and let's go to integrations, paste it in here, remove that, go to the button, take the text, go in here, paste it in there, and I can go to KPI. I can go in here. I can go like to, I can look for charts, like a chart. That looks cool. Let's copy it for Figma. Let's go to Toddle. Let's paste it in here. Let's delete the other SVG, copy the text, go to the button, and let's go to monitoring, and we can do like, we can look for alerts, something like that. Copy that icon, copy for Figma, go to Toddle, paste it in here, remove this, go to monitoring. Okay, I spelled that right. Let's paste it in here. So I have that on the side. Now I can go to Billing Center, and I can look for a file, for example, that looks like an invoice. Maybe, or I can do like, I can look for a link, because we may want to have that link like to Stripe. So I can look like for a little cool link. That link looks cool. Let's copy that. Let's go to Billing Center, paste it in here, take the SVG, delete it, click on Billing Center, go to the button, paste it in here, and let's do the with the last one, chat support. Let's look for chat, and I look at my little message bubble. Let's look at that here. I like, it's a tough choice. Let's take this one. Let's copy it for Figma. Let's go to Toddle. Let's paste it in here. Let's remove the SVG, copy the text, go to the button, paste it, and now we have our side panel for our dashboard ready. Now it's not responsive yet, but if you build a dashboard like this, you're probably not targeting it for a mobile application, but we also have ways how we can, of course, make this go responsive using style variables, but I'll be making a separate video on how to do that. Because that will be a whole topic by itself, and responsiveness is also something very important. And now I can go on the background here, for example. I can make it a little bit lighter or pretty much the same. I can go on border radius. I can also make this 14 pixels. And I can go, this is 200, so I go in here. And I can make the border also 200. And now I have that part of the dashboard next to it. I then also want to give it like a padding. I can do 1 rem and 1 rem, just like that. So now I want to bring in some nice data. So I can add in my dashboard section here, and what I like is let's just collapse those things so we get a nicer element tree view of what we're actually doing. And let's go to the div and let's paste another div in here. Boom. And that will be like my welcome message. So I can do like width 100%, and I can do like a height of 25 rem. Maybe that's too much. I can do a height of 15 rem. Okay, and what I want, maybe I want like some kind of list in here with my leads, with my latest leads. So I can have this 15 rem, and I want like 2 columns. One that is kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a photo or something, or logo, and one is like the lead list, or what do we do? Let's just actually make like a whole diagonal list in here. So I can have this, then let's actually make this 20 rem, okay? And let's make like the nice UI for our list. So I go on the background, let's make this white, all the way white. Here we go. Let's give it a border of 10 rem, and let's give it a border color of 200. We can do that here. So now it's nice and highlighted, looks pretty. And we can also give it even rounder corners if we want, but I think that looks good so far. Let's give it like a padding of 1. Actually, we don't need a padding. Forgot it. No, we don't need a padding. And what we can do now in here is I can add a div block on top. I can make this width 100%. And that will be our list item. So I can then give each one like 4 rem height, for example. And I can style our list items, right? Those will be our leads. We will have a name, and we will have like an email or something. And I actually have it already prepped in the database where I have my name and my emails for those. And we will be rendering that dynamically as well. So I'm just going to go to Toddle, and I have my list in here. So let's just go to this list, and how about we just go with the lower border, and we go to border, and I go to bottom, and I add a lower border of 200. So as you can see, if we zoom in, we see that, you know, we have a border in here set. And, you know, just to make it even clearer and seeable, we can probably want to set that maybe even to 300, just so that it stands out. And we can then also make that lower border 2 pixels instead, just so that we have a divider, or we may not even need that. I think maybe 1 pixel is enough. Look at this, beautiful. And now I can add a side padding in the layout section of 1 rem, and in top and bottom section of 1 rem, the padding. And now I can add a div block in here that will just kind of like create a structure. So in here, I have the div. I want the inside elements to go on the side. So I have my div in here. I can make this And actually, I would not even need to add a div. I can just add like spans in here. So what I can do is I can add a paragraph, and that will have the name. So let's put in username, or actually, I think if we put Damien in there, that will even look more beautiful. Look at that. And we have it in here. And actually, how about we don't add it as a paragraph? How about I add it as a div, right? And in the div, I add pure text, and I make it in the center. I think that is better. And we can put Damien in here, and I can take also like a cool icon, for example, where I can do like, let's look if they have like a lead icon. That looks cool. I like that one. Let's look at this. Boom. And I can go to Toddle, and in this div here, I can add my icon, and again, go on layout and do it on the side. Let's copy that, and let's go to the div and paste it in here. Give it my gap of 0.5 rem, and then I can also go into the icon and change the color of the SVG. So I can go, for example, I can go to background, and I can make this a little bit gray, right? Or actually, how about we do it a little bit blue? So we go on blue 50, and the text color of this will be blue 600. Yes. And then I'm going to add a little padding to it. So I'm going to add padding 0.25 rem, and top and bottom 0.25 rem. It's going to be tiny now, but I can then go to the attributes of that and make the width 30 pixels and the height 30 pixels. So now I have my icon in here for each lead, and I can add it, give it rounded borders of be like 4 pixels, for example. So it looks nice. I think this looks very cool already. And then I have my lead in here, and I want to make sure that now if I add another div block, I can just copy this one because it's a similar principle, that I make sure that they have like some spacing. So I can do like 2 rem, for example. And now in this one, I could just remove this part here, and I would put the email. So I would like Damien@example.com, right? It would be Damien@example.com. And I want to actually go in here, and I want to like have like a separator here. So what I can do is I can just actually reset the gap if I want, or I can just keep it at 1 rem, and I go into the div block in here, and I click on here to customize each side of the padding, and I add a left padding of 1 rem, so we have it separated here. And I go to the border, and I add a left border of 300 to kind of like add a separator in here that just makes it look way more professional, right? And now what I ideally want to do is I want to actually wrap those in a div block. So I have my div block in here, a new one, and I'm going to copy Damien's. I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to copy this div block with the email, and I'm going to paste it in here. And now I want to make sure that this div block goes to the side, and that it also has a gap of 1 rem. So we have consistent spacing here that contains it here. And now I want to have like a button where I have like view more details or something. So I can have a button in here, and I can go to the button, make it blue 50, and I go on the text. I can make it then blue 600, and I can put like view lead, just like that, make sure it's centered. And I can then also go to the icons here, and I can do like link, for example, and I can look like for a cool, like a link box like that. I can do like a small one, 16 pixels. And I can go back to Toddle and paste it in the button and make sure it goes to the side. As you can see here, give it some gap, 0.5 rem, maybe even 0.45 rem. This is now perfectionism, and I have it in here. I can add my side padding of 0.75 rem and a height of 0.5 rem maybe. Top and bottom padding, beautiful. And now what I want to do is I want to have this aligned to the side. So I go on the element that holds, let's go here, that holds this one, and I just go here and double click, so it aligns this on this side and this on this side. And now I have the list to render my leads in here. Beautiful. I think that's a good dashboard for starters. And now we want to build like a super simple API that lets us pull this data and inject it into Toddle and work with it. So I have a little database with like my organization and my leads in here. It's super simple. I have my leads in here as another object, as a list, and I have my email and all that information in here. So I can go to APIs and I can call this dashboard in Xano, but it works with Supabase, it works with every tool that you use, with Airtable, and I can create a custom endpoint that is a get, and I can call this leads. Beautiful. And I can pass on my text in my API of ID, for example, that is like the organization, the account ID. And now let's actually open another tab in Xano and go to our database. And let's go on the database here and let's copy the ID of our section and let's go to run and debug. Let's put the ID in here. And now I'm going to go and add in Xano a get record for the dashboard people. I'm going to have the ID. This is the first field is the database field. The second one is the field that is my input field. I'm going to add it in here. Boom, and now we have dashboard 1 as the result, and that will be mapped. So now when I run this, I will get this information back. Now I can publish that endpoint, and I can connect with that endpoint in Toddle. The way I do this is I click on copy endpoint URL, I go to Toddle, and now I click outside of the canvas, and we see this section called APIs. This is how I can connect with webhooks and with my backend. I can click on here, and now it is automatically going to say that I'm in Los Angeles, California. It's beautiful. It's wonderful weather today. Look at that. Great. So I'm removing auto fetch because actually we need auto fetch. Sorry. We need auto fetch. I'm just going to remove their pre-made endpoint URL and I'm going to name this, for example, user, just as an example. I put my Xano endpoint URL in here. Now it's going to say, the field value is missing. You need to pass on the ID. Remember the user ID. And that was this ID in here. That is the user ID. So let's copy the user ID. Let's go back to Toddle. And now I can go to queries. If I'm going to do a get, I use queries. If I'm going to do a post, I will probably have to go into the body. But that will be a little bit more effort, and we'll make a separate video on post requests in Toddle. Or actually, I made one. It's called Toddle Farms. I put it in the description below. I do on queries, and the name is ID because, as you can see in Xano, we're looking for the ID key, and I have to add the ID key in here too. And then I can go on formulas and map it with the ID. Now, most of the times you will get that ID dynamically when the user authenticates. So we're just going to create a variable called user_ID. A variable is a thing that stores like the data. And we're just going to hard code that ID. And I'm going to show you now, pretend this is dynamic, how to get it using a function. So I'm going to go back to my API. And I'm going to go in the ID section on the FX. And I'm going to go in this formula builder on plus. And oops, I clicked on the wrong thing and I exit everything now. Let's go back to the API and let's go on the formula builder. Let's click on the plus and we map it to our ID. And now we see this is the user ID and it's now dynamically adding it in here. And now I get that user information and the leads that that user has. That is all I need to do. And if I want it to be rendered immediately, I just do auto fetch. And now I want to render the list based on my dynamic information. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to click on the list item. This is the item I want to render the list. That will be this one. That will be the list item. And I double click or two-finger click and I go on repeat. And now in this repeat, I'm going to go on plus. I'm going to go to the API result. I'm going to click on data and we're going to see leads. This will be my list, right? And now we see we have this record duplicated multiple times because it's linked to the list that comes from our backend automatically. But now we want the name to be dynamic. So I double click into Damien. I go on FX, I click on plus, and now I go on item, and I go on name, and now it has the dynamic name. I'm going to do the same thing with email. I can double click on the email field, and then I see this text area, go to FX, click on plus, go to item, and then I go on email. And now we have the dynamic emails. Now, when I want to make a button and maybe go to a dynamic page, I could do this by going to events, on click, and I can go to URL in that function in here on the events, on click, and I could also then make this dynamic. So maybe I want to go to a website that is example, let's go in here and let's use a concat filter. Let's say if we want to do a dynamic path, I can go concatenate. What is concatenate? Concatenate means I have a piece of text and I add another piece of text to it. So then let's remove this. I have my concatenate. I want to go to example.com/ and then I go in here. The other part I want to concatenate is the item name. So, or maybe the item email. So now I would be going to example.com/Damien@example.com. So I can then also, on the specific elements, on the actions, on the logic that applies, if I, for example, click on a button in this list item, I can also take the dynamic value that, is in correspondence with this list item and tied to it in the logic that I proceed in my formulas in here, and then just like add dynamic functionality to it. And this is how you're going to build a very simple dashboard inside of Toddle. And you can see if I click on here, I'm going to go to example.com/Damien@example.com, which of course doesn't exist. If I click on JSON, it's going to go to Jason@example.com as the path. If I go to Andreas, we all love Andreas, it's going to go to example.com/Andreas@example.com. And this is how we can also add dynamic functionality to our dashboard. Now, one thing you see, we have the hover thing that doesn't look that cool. So let's just touch this whole thing up by going in here and making a nicer hover. So I go on the hover, and I just want to make the background like blue 100 maybe, and I can keep it like that. And now if I want to add a transition, I go on transitions. I already have the color applied automatically. It's smart. It recognizes what you do, what you change. And I like to have it on ease. So now if I go on here, we see that actually, let's go back on hover. I need to apply it not on the hover state though. That was my mistake. I need to go to the default state and apply the transition for color on the default state. Because now this is how I should get the animation. Let's go on default here, color, and actually I like to do all just to make sure that it always works. And now you can see we have a nice transition in here. Beautiful. I can do the same thing with the side panel. So I can go in here. To be honest, for the side panel, I'm not a big fan of using them. So I go on the pencil and delete them on the side panel. I'm just going to do this for everyone. So I'll delete this here. If you reuse elements, it may be worth turning them into components so you have a more universal way of working with them. But if you want to learn more on how to create components and how to create, reusable components that each have tied API calls and logic inside of them so that you have less repetition in the way you build your application, feel free to check out the next video. By the way, that fade is way too long. And actually, let's make this 100. I found that for dashboards, 100 milliseconds is like the sweet spot because it's still reactive and responsive, but it's not slow and doesn't feel buggy. So look at this. We just built a dashboard in Toddle with dynamic data in less than 30 minutes. This really shows the power of Toddle and how great and flexible and of a versatile tool it is. I think it's a wonderful tool to build complex web applications. And if you want to learn more about Toddle and you want to learn more how to build SaaS software, SaaS applications in Toddle, AI applications in Toddle, I highly invite you to join our community of daily office hours and a beautiful community membership at nocodeprocode.com, where we have daily office hours, and we just come together every day to solve your problems in Toddle, to help you learn Toddle, to help you make the shift from wherever you're coming, and just to help you get started with Toddle. We have a lot of people that always say, oh, I just want to wait till I become an expert to join office hours. But really, most of the people in office hours are people who are just starting out with Toddle. And I think it's a great help if you're just starting out with Toddle. Joining office hours really gives you the help that you need to get a head start of everyone else. And also, once you are better, it also helps you at the same time to solve the more complex challenges that always occur in web development, because technology is always evolving and everything is all the time changing. Especially as your understanding of it evolves, the requirements that you put on yourself evolve as well. And having a place like office hours is a great way to push the limits of what you're doing, and to actually not push the limits, because when you join office hours, there are no limits. The sky is the limit, and the sky is endless. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all your support, for standing with me, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.